What is going on, Devils fans? It is, as always, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another Monday edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as SportsWire Radio, the best place to get everything you know about we are into the final stretch of the regular season New Jersey Devils. And as always, Devils fans, really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to check this episode out. And all the episodes that I post, I really do appreciate, and I hope you are having a fantastic day here in the state of New Jersey. I'm sure a lot of you probably already know, but it is over 70 degrees on the last day of March. So this is interesting. This episode will be out on April 1st. No, it is not an April Fool's joke. It will actually be out tomorrow, April 1st. So whether you want to say it's my last episode of the month of March or the first episode of April, however you want to put it, nonetheless, this is episode 21 of season 6 of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, and I really do appreciate everybody here. We are into the final stretch of the regular season, and we are really down to the nitty-gritty. Really quickly, shout out to our friends, our sponsors, both at DraftKings and at Times River Brewing at DraftKings Sportsbook. If you bet $5 when you sign up and use our promo code THPN, you get $200 instantly in risk-free bets, and this is the perfect time, sports fans. I mean, you got the Final Four of March Madness. You have the Frozen Four coming up later on this month. April 10th will be the Frozen Four, and the Devils do have two players in significance being, actually, I think they have three now that I think about it. Yeah, they have three different guys involved in the Frozen Four. You have, obviously, Major League Baseball just got underway this past weekend. You have the push for the Stanley Cup playoffs. You have the push for the NBA playoffs. You even have the Masters tournament coming up very soon. So this is the perfect time to get in on all the huge cash prizes by signing up with our promo code at DraftKings Sportsbook THPN. You bet $5, you get $200 instantly in risk-free bets. And as always, shout out to our friends over at Tom's River Brewing. We just finished up our Stephen Nason stick toss sign tracker giveaway. Shout out to Brandon Coco for winning that. I promise you we will have more giveaways with Tom's River Brewing down the road. But make sure to go get a case of Stick Toss, the official beer of the New Jersey Devils. And it is absolutely fantastic. You need to go. If you have a chance to go down to the place, to the brewery, make sure you go do that and tell them Neil from Devil's State of Mind sent you. And shout out, as always, to my friends over at Tom's River Brewing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just rolling on here with the guests because, again, you guys seem to really love it, especially here on YouTube. And I greatly appreciate that. And I'm bringing on someone who I've never actually had a chance to have a one-on-one conversation with until literally now, but I've seen her work numerous times, and she does a fantastic job. She's also a researcher for NHL Network, and she does a bunch of different things. She does Devil stuff. She does New York Sirens stuff, and we're going to get into all of that. It is with great pleasure that we welcome on Breanna Ebisch. Breanna, oh, wait a minute. I messed up there. Pressed the wrong button. Let's try that again. Breanna, there she is. Hello,
Hi.
Breanna. Thank you so much for jumping on the Devil's State of My podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
First off, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing very well. As you mentioned, the warm weather, amazing. I just love that, the sun and the warmth, but I'm very excited. Final stretch of the season, which is so wild to me that we're already here, but it's the most exciting time of the year, especially in the East, as I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you know, for the wild card and everything else going on, but it's perfect. I'm so excited.
And I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today. And speaking of the word wild, why don't we jump in and recap the Devils' last game, which happened on Saturday night in Minnesota against the Wild, as the Devils came away with a 5-2 win over Minnesota, including a Nico Hischier hat trick, his second of the year, as he continues to have arguably his best goal scoring season of his career. The Devils started off this game really on fire as they scored less than a minute in, 29 seconds in. Nico Hischier scored on a rebound goal, and then about 5-ish minutes later, Paul Cotter, just kind of throwing the puck in a sharp angle in the corner, finds the back of the net. Devils have a 2-0 lead. Marcus Foligno gets one back from Minnesota. Hischier then ends up getting his second of the game on a beautiful shot off the post and in. I mean, it was a
It
beautiful
was
wrist shot.
so nice.
It was, and you could hear the clang off the iron and in. Ryan Hartman made things a little stressful early on in the third period. That made it 3-2. But The Devils continued to push. Nico Hischier scoring on a rebound, kind of knocking the puck down and then knocking a sharp angle for the hat trick, his 33rd of the year. And then Tomas Tatar with his first goal, and I can't even tell you the last time he scored. His 7th of the year, top shelf over the glove side of Philip Gustafsson, and the Devils come away with the win. Jacob Markstrom with probably his best game since coming back from injury, stopping 20
Yeah.
of the 24 Minnesota Wild shots, and the Devils get the very much needed victory. Breanna, what were some of the things that really stuck out to you in that win for the Devils on Saturday?
I I guess fun fact, I love when players score hat tricks. It is so exciting to me. It's also in Nico's case, career high in goals now. It was so exciting. First off, the opening goal, not even a minute in, you kind of that established the way the game was going to go. Coming off, oh, what was the loss? The loss before
Coming
this?
off getting the doors blown off you in the first
Yeah.
half of the back to back against Winnipeg.
So it was very much a very good sign that they came out very strong in the beginning.
Sure.
But I love games with hat tricks. It's so exciting, not only just for the team but for fans. But again, that opening goal kind of set the tone. It was awesome, and I just think that career high in goals for Nico kind of says everything about his season. And we've talked about it a lot, like missing Jack now and the
Hmm.
injuries and how many people have to step up. It's so great to see Nico stepping up and taking that action. But a hat trick is always great. I love it,
Yeah.
but against a team that, especially Minnesota, also struggling with players being out of injury with injuries, but it was an awesome bounce back win,
Hmm.
especially following that game in Winnipeg. And it'd be interesting to see how that translates when they play the same team at home. But it was a very good game. I
Yeah.
loved it. The coming out strong and maintaining that is what you want to see, especially against another playoff team in another conference.
I think it's also important that the Devils bounced back from the type of game they had against
Yes.
Winnipeg. You didn't have Luke Hughes. It was kind of a last minute thing. He was dealing with a lower body injury, still is
Mhm.
currently. And, things just, you got off to such a bad start in that game and you could never really get fully going. And then you find a way, you go to Minnesota and you end up, I mean, you look at it, right? They ended up taking 2 out of 3 on that little Central Division road trip. So it ended up being a successful road trip, however you want to look at it. And I think Nico Hischier brought it up at one point, saying, that was kind of a playoff game for us in a way. We really kind of grinded it out. We never really allowed Minnesota to get fully,
Mhm.
into the game, really making them feel they had a shot. The big thing that obviously stood out more than anything was the amount of times that there was a stoppage of play because guys were duking out. Kovacevic dropped the gloves
Yep.
at one point, threw one punch and won the fight, even though it was a pretty lame
Yeah.
fight. Jacob Markstrom and Brett Pesci standing over top. I think it was Gaudreau
Yes.
after a little bit of extracurricular moments there. But I think what really stood out to me the most, though, Brianna, was I think it was something that was mentioned about what Jacob Markstrom said before that game. He said something along the lines of, don't worry about having to make a play if I take a penalty. Like
Mhm.
basically telling his team, go out there and just play. Don't worry about me. Don't worry, I
Yep.
got it. And he stepped up. He looked much more like the Jacob Markstrom that we saw prior to his injury when he was
Yes.
playing at basically a Vesna type level. And I think it's positive and it's hopeful that he can build upon it. He's won each of his last 2 games. He gets to start tonight at home when the Devils once again face the Minnesota Wild.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of positives you could take away from Jacob Markstrom that maybe he's starting to finally find his groove again.
Yeah, and I also think again at this point in the season, your goaltending is very important. It is always important, but especially coming down the stretch, like you need your goaltenders to be on it. And I think for Markstrom to get back to that form that we saw him when he struggled really, really rough when he came back from that injury, to see him get back to the form he was in the beginning of the season, when yeah, we were talking about him in the Vesna conversation. And I think if you have a team that is picking up the slack without your big players who are injured and they're already playing well, and you add a really great goaltending performance in net every night, you are solid. And I think the Devils, if they get that from him, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with coming down the stretch. And then whatever may happen in the playoffs, it's going to be crazy. And that's really great to have Markstrom back on that level of play at this very important time of the year.
And like I mentioned before, he'll look for his third consecutive win.
Mhm.
Devils, once again, at the time of this recording, this episode will be out tomorrow on Tuesday, so we'll already know the result of tonight's game. But the Devils are back home for Autism Acceptance Night at the Rock when they take on the Minnesota Wild again for their for I don't even know if you want to say the second game of a back to back against them. I mean,
Home and
they had the
home,
day off.
yeah.
They had the day off yesterday to travel, but nonetheless, Devils will be looking to try to sweep the season series against Minnesota. And they actually only have one more road game the rest of the
That's
season.
right.
So, Breanna, how important is it at this stage of the season for the Devils to have basically pretty close to a full homestand to wrap up the last 6, 7 games of the year?
First off, it's awesome for the fans who get to be there and see the team finish out a season that's been really great.
Yeah.
But in terms of standings, if you're trying to catch the Canes for your home ice advantage in the playoffs, which I think would be very important, this is that time to kind of catch up on the points. Of course, it matters how the Canes play coming
Hmm.
down this stretch, but if you can if the Devils can really get a lot of wins, establish how they play at home, it's not only going to benefit them, I think, in the playoffs to have that confidence on home ice, but if there's a chance they can get that home ice advantage for that first round matchup, that would be huge. I think they know that, and the fans know that, and we know that as somebody who talks about hockey all the time. But that is something they really should, I feel like, focus on to get those wins, and those points are really important in general. But that home ice advantage, I think, would benefit them so much, especially against the Hurricanes. Like they're a team you really don't want to ever face,
Hmm.
especially in the playoffs. But it'll be really great for them to they don't have to travel anywhere. They're home. They get to kind of be in one place for the rest of the season, minus that one home game.
Right.
That makes it's. I feel like there's a level of comfort in it. Like you can play probably better because you're not traveling everywhere and you have a routine and you're in it. But I think that would help if they can get the points to kind of catch the Canes, or even narrow it a little bit. I think that'd be huge going in. Maybe if they catch them for the playoffs, but even not, just a crazy end of the season for that too.
It is still very I mean, not very but it still is possible. I mean, when
It
and
is.
that kind of brings me to a good point to kind of bring up the standings as they currently stand. Devils at 85 points. They are 9 points behind the Hurricanes for second in the division. The other issue is that the Hurricanes still have 2 games in hand.
Mhm.
So it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard for the Devils to end up catching and then passing the Hurricanes down the stretch. I mean, you're looking at probably a situation where the Devils would really have to win ultimately every game the rest of the way, and the Hurricanes to basically drop almost every game. So whether we like it or not, we're going to end up having to play the Carolina Hurricanes in the first round. I think that's pretty much been a guarantee for the better part of the last 2 months,
Yeah.
2 plus months. It'll be a rematch of 2 years ago in the second round, and obviously the teams are different, but also still very similar than what we had 2 years ago. But I think for the Devils right now, it's going to be a focus on just trying to play that consistent game like they did against Minnesota. I know Sheldon Keefe has talked about this team being consistently inconsistent,
Yes.
but hopefully they can build upon Saturday's game and go into the playoffs with a lot of positivity. And it should also be mentioned that the Devils have one of their longer breaks of the regular season. After tonight's game against Minnesota, they do not play again until Saturday afternoon at home against the New York Rangers. So they have a
That's
pretty
right.
long, time off, which could be good also because the Devils are still a little bit banged up. Obviously Luke Hughes dealing with a lower body injury. Cody Glass, who is still not back from his lower body injury,
Mhm.
maybe he could get back to playing to game form by the time Saturday comes around. And it has been brought to my attention that Devils currently the magic number to clinch is 10 points. From what I understand, and I've kind of done the math in my head, is that the Devils can get the 2 points tonight and they can get some good results from the out of town scoreboards, i.e., teams like the Rangers and the Blue Jackets and the Islanders losing. I think also maybe the Canadians as well. I'm not quite sure, but
Yeah, probably.
it is possible that the Devils could potentially wrap up a playoff spot if they win the game against the Rangers on Saturday. I think it's unlikely, but it's still a possibility. And I think for a lot of Devils fans, to do it against your hated rival, to not only do that, but to end up winning 3 out of 4 in the season series, I think
Mhm.
is would be awesome. But I try not to look too far ahead. I think the focus has to be tonight. The focus has to be, whenever they're playing, can they, get these points and continue to go? And also with a win tonight, the Devils will reach 40 wins on the season for the
Yeah.
second time in 2 years, which I think ends up still being pretty remarkable considering how things have been for this Devils team up until this point. So, you know, Breanna, what is one thing to kind of wrap up the Devils segment here? What is one specific thing you're looking for from this team in the final stretch of games here?
I think like you mentioned them playing consistently, the I think it's a little too late in the year to be have an up and down stretch of games. And I think I'm not sure who they're playing. I haven't looked at the schedule, but,
Mhm.
obviously, tonight was against Minnesota. Doesn't have a major effect on your Eastern Conference rivals, but you want those points. That game against the Rangers on Saturday is gonna be huge, not only just for them, but again, that impacts the wild card standings and whoever may be getting in. So I think, like you said, getting Luke healthy and getting everybody who might need a couple minutes, couple days to breathe and get back on the schedule and get back healthy, and then just playing consistently, maintaining that level of, I don't wanna say dominance, but just playing well, coming out strong, letting
Right.
I want to see them have teams chase the lead instead of them chase the lead. And that was a major problem for them last season,
Yeah.
and it's kind of been the same this year, not as bad, but I think getting out to those early leads, maintaining the level of play from the start
Mhm.
contributes mainly to playing them to them playing consistently, but that's gonna help them finish out the season strong, feel good coming into the playoffs knowing they have, like, their identity, they know how to play, they know how to win. So I think that's your I don't wanna say key to success, but a way that they can feel confident in getting those points and getting those wins, finishing out the season on a positive note, for sure.
Consistency is going to continue to be the big thing moving
Yeah.
forward the rest of the year. And, an opportunity to get more on a consistent good note if you could get a good performance tonight at home against the Wild. Last thing here before we shift to our next point, just want to bring up here's the rest of the schedule, not including tonight's game against the Minnesota Wild. After tonight, the Devils will play 5 more home games and 1 road game. Their 1 road game will be on the 15th of April against the Boston Bruins. So for the next 2 weeks, basically, the Devils will be in the comforts of their own homes. Against Saturday, they will be at home against the Rangers. Next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, they will be at home against Boston. Then Friday the 11th, they'll be at home against Pittsburgh. Then the 13th, a day game against the New York Islanders. And as mentioned before, 15th, they're on the road against Boston. And then they have their season and last home game of the regular season, a 7:30 nationally televised game against the Detroit Red Wings. And who knows where the Red Wings might be by the time we get to that point. But the Devils' regular season will be done in 16 days from the time this ends.
Crazy.
So as mentioned on this episode, the title of it, we are in the final stretch here. We are into the thick of it now, and it's really going to be interesting how the Devils play the rest of the way here as they try to clinch a playoff spot and get ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs, which would start only 3 days after the regular season concludes. So, not a lot of time to get ready for it, but it's going to be exciting nonetheless. So, talking, I guess you want to say the final stretch here. Let's shift over to our sister team who plays at the Prudential Center, and that is the New York Sirens, who this is their first full year playing at the Prudential Center. I've had the fortune of going to a couple of games. I was at their last home game when they lost to the Ottawa Charge in the first of the 2 Ottawa losses that night. Um, and I think it's safe to say, Brianna, that when the season started, they got off to a really strong start. They were playing well. Their power
Yes.
play was tremendous. It seemed like Greg Fargo was really getting the team to buy in. And I don't know if it was because of that international break that they had or what the case may be. They have really never gotten back to that level and completely, just being blunt, completely fell off the table as current standings show they are in last place by 6 points
Yeah.
with 30 points on the year. Not too many games left in the regular season. It pretty much is looking like that the Sirens will once again miss the PWHL playoffs and might very well be in contention once again for the first overall pick. So my first question to you, Brianna, about the Sirens is simply, what has happened to this Sirens team?
I wish I had an answer for you. We started out, as you said, there was a while where I was like, they are going to make the playoffs. If they play like this the rest
Mm-hmm.
of the season, there's not going to be a doubt in my mind that they don't qualify. Whether it was like second or third didn't matter. I was like, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to make the playoffs. About halfway through, like you said, we came back and they had a stretch where I cover every Sirens home game, and I think the losing streak got up to like 9 games.
Yes.
And in this league, when you only play 30 games and every regulation win is worth 3 points, you're if you lose like four in a row, you have a chance of falling out of playoff contention. And it's really hard to kind of get back on track after you lost a couple. So losing 9 in a row did not help them at all.
Nope.
Um, for a while too at home, the power play was not good at all. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it had been a very long stretch before they had even converted on a power play.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of things that have gone wrong. I think it's also ironic in a way because they got the first overall pick last year, Sarah
Mm-hmm.
Fillier. She's been lights out, amazing. I don't know. I think she still leads the league in points. If not, she's up there. She leads all rookies. It's been absolutely insane watching her play in person, and when you're not watching in person, just watching her do what she does, it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. But for a while, they were also missing Alex Carpenter. That is another major blow. She's another player who drives their offense majorly. So there was kind of a lot of things that contributed to them not having the lineup they might have wanted to get the results. But that 9 game losing streak really pretty much set the tone for how the season was going. Before that, they
Mm-hmm.
still had a chance. I think when
Yes.
you again, it's a small season, and the points on all those games are really important. And for them not to even get to overtime, if you lose in regulation, it's not good. So, yeah, I wish I knew. I was so like positive and riding high on how they started the season,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just slowly got to where it is now. So we'll see. They only have one home game left, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that game at least goes well, but there's still a chance they could maybe sneak in, but it is more than likely that they will miss once again, as they did last year.
It really has been a really tough, more or less second half of the season for this Sirens team. I mean, they've really just had a lot of, kind of similar to the Devils, a lot of inconsistencies. They are coming off of a dramatic come from behind 6-3 win over the Ottawa Charge last
Which was
Tuesday. So
crazy, yeah.
maybe that could kind of get them going for the rest of the way. They do have 4 games remaining and only one at home. It'll be their final game of the regular season on Friday, May 2nd. Here's a little bit in case you guys are on YouTube. This is the rest of their schedule. They'll be on MSG for all those, also on Amazon Prime and also on YouTube. They always
For
show the
free.
game on for free, which honestly I think is a great thing that the PWHL does. Really, really love that. And you mentioned Sarah Fillier, who came from Princeton University, is the first
Mhm.
overall pick. She's currently second in the league in points, one behind Hillary Knight, and currently has the sole possession of third in the PWHL in goals. And it's interesting that you bring up Sarah Fillier because I do have one thing that I want to get your perspective on. There was a lot of delay for her to
Yes.
sign after she was drafted, and she ended up signing a 1-year deal with the Sirens. Does it worry? Should okay? I guess the way I'm asking this is: should Sirens fans be worried that maybe this is going to be a one and done thing, and that she's going to either go to another team in free agency, or maybe even play in a different league? Like, can you give us a little bit of an
Yeah.
understanding for my viewers? Like, what is the situation with Sarah Fillier?
Yeah, so I obviously I have no idea what's going to happen postseason or after the season's over, but I had the same thoughts. So every other rookie who was drafted last year signed, as you would typically do, 3-year entry level contracts. They stuck with their team. Fillier was the only one who signed her entry level contract, but it was just a year. And
Hmm.
at the time, a lot of people, she's from Ontario, she's near Toronto, she trains a
Hmm.
lot of Toronto players. So at the time, a lot of people were like, maybe she's just going to play in New York, give them like that, their season. And then,
Hmm.
if possible, like if the season didn't go well,
Yeah.
decide to leave and go play in Toronto. I don't know if that's like if there's any truth to that or if that's a reality.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't watch the PWHL, Toronto is, as if you want to say powerhouse, they are one of the powerhouse teams like Montreal. They have your star players. They do really well. They do well in their market. They play well. They make the playoffs. So the draw for as a player would make sense because they do very well, and that's her, I guess, her hometown team. I would hate to see her go if that's the case, especially because I know like the standings and the record hasn't been a huge difference for the Sirens, but their level of play and how much they've gelled together and having somebody who's on Carpenter's level to play with
Hmm.
her has really
Yeah.
helped. I don't know. I also don't want her to leave if that's what
I
happens, but
understand.
we'll see. I guess it would make an interesting story. But
Hmm.
I also think I would imagine she stays just because she's played here a year. It's a good place to start, and that doesn't mean the Sirens won't make the playoffs come next year. It's
Right.
just an interesting, yeah. When you come in as a rookie and sign only a 1 year deal, people are going to ask you why.
Sure.
And a player of her caliber who's really, really good, it raises even more questions because why, like, yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm also questioning it, and I think that'd be interesting to watch, but we'll see, I guess. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's I guess, the story of it, the background of it.
It'll
But
be really interesting, like you said, to see how things go in the off season. We'll certainly keep our eye on it as the months pass.
mhm.
Fun fact: my favorite goaltender in the PWHL, I don't think is even the starter for the Scepters, and that's Jackson. I absolutely
Yeah.
love her. I loved her when she was playing for the Toronto Six in the old
Yes.
NWHL.
Yep.
I was a Riveters fan at of course, I was,
I
watching them, and
valid.
I even my dad has always said like I really miss the Riveters. Like
Mhm.
I know he was really into it. It's a little bit different in the PWHL, but the last thing I wanted to bring up to get your kind of perspective on is the attendance, because I think that was something that I
Yes.
think the Athletic brought up at one point. I've seen
Mhm.
videos on it on YouTube, kind of talk about it, and to I don't know if you would say to the surprise, or maybe not as much of a surprise. The Sirens are towards the bottom in terms of attendance. They get
Yes.
a decent crowd. They got a really good crowd against Ottawa in their last
Mhm.
home game, but overall, when comparatively to a lot of the other teams in the league, it seems to be kind of a difficulty. Last year they played most of their games either in Bridgeport or at UBS Arena. They played their
Mhm.
last two games at the Prudential Center, and this year they've played all of their home games at Prudential Center. Is it is it a concern? I guess a two-part question. Is it a concern to you about the attendance, and why do you think it has been a struggle? Maybe is the right word for attendance, at least in this area
Yeah.
with the Sirens.
So I talk about this a lot with people that kind of watch the Sirens. So I've covered them for the last 2 years since the PWHL was created. So I started at games at UBS last year,
Hmm.
and I don't want to say it was very. We had games where there was like maybe 1,000 people there,
Mm.
and as somebody, I live in Jersey, so for me to drive to UBS, it's like a 2.5 hour drive.
Right,
And like, no, I even told my friends, I was like, as much as you love hockey, I don't see anybody who's driving 2 hours from Jersey to get there.
of
So
course.
I was one of the people who was very excited to have them move to Prudential because the Prudential games last year were crazy. They had the biggest attendance they've had ever,
Hmm.
and it felt way more like there was a lot of hope. And I was like, there's people that are here, and
Sure.
women's hockey's done really well in Jersey. Like we said, the Riveters, like it's been here, it's not new.
Yep.
But in comparison to the other teams, there's three of them in Canada. All three of them in Canada have set insane number records. Minnesota is the only other team who regularly plays in an NHL arena. They play at XL, where
Yep.
Minnesota, the Wild play, and they also do well. So I don't know if it's. I always kind of tell people like we're in a very saturated market in Jersey. You have all of the
Hmm.
New York teams. Well, Devils, I guess, are the only real Jersey team, but
Yep.
there's a lot of sports here,
Mhm.
and it's really hard, I feel like, to establish a new league, a new team to get people to be like, "Hey, you should care about this." But also
Yeah.
there's like 5 million other sporting events happening in the area almost at the
Right.
same time. So I think that plays a part in it, but um I they've done better this year at Prudential than they did at UBS last year. And I
Mhm.
hate saying that because everybody who on Long Island is gonna hate me saying that, but it's true. Like, there's been
Yeah.
way more people. Even the smallest crowd we've had at Prudential was pretty much the average that we got at UBS. So that it gives me a little confidence. I just think it's a lot of establishing them. The marketing hasn't been completely there. Like that double header against when they had them and the Devils was so helpful because I was like,
And I gotta say, like, I don't think it was promoted enough by at least the
exactly.
Devils side of it. I thought
Yes.
I give Devils dot fan page a lot of credit because he pushed it a
Yeah.
lot. I pushed it a lot because I went to both games. I just thought it would be like even if they could do like a deal where like maybe you could get like tickets
Yep.
for both games for the price of one or something
Mhm.
like that. I feel like it would have been good. I think the marketing could have been better for that doubleheader.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've said too. We see a lot of the other NHL teams, like Montreal does a lot of stuff with the Victoire. And when there's takeover tour games, like all the NHL teams kind of step in. And I had complained a lot last year about how the Isles didn't do anything. Like they had
Mm,
welcomed them and that was it. And I had a little hope the Devils would do more. And that game, that same doubleheader, I was like, I know all of the players are here, so like just send one to just say hi, be at the game.
something, yeah.
That's enough that would get people that are Devils fans to be like, oh my God, wait, they're at that game.
Mhm,
Maybe I should check it out. So there's a lot of, I think there's just a lot of issues with how they kind of promote it, the marketing of it, being in the same building. It is also hard when a lot of sports exist all in the same place, very
right.
small area. Um, is there concern? I don't know if there is yet because if you guys don't know, the PWHL is looking at expansion for next
Yeah,
season
I think I heard that they might be making an announcement at
very
some point
soon.
this
It's
week.
supposed to be soon. Yeah.
Supposed to be soon, yeah.
So I don't really know if it comes to like they have to move a team. I really don't know if they would do that when you're trying to introduce new teams
Yeah,
and finding all that. So I also somebody brought it up too. It's a very good argument that this year is kind of like year one for the Sirens because they have a specific home arena. They
yep,
haven't established anything here yet because they hadn't been here last year. So I'm hoping that kind of next year it gets a little the ball keeps rolling and they have that
mhm,
foundation that they can grow from. It's it is just a glaringly obvious difference from the other teams. I think the only
mhm,
other one is Boston, who's close, but Boston plays at a very small arena,
yeah,
so it's kind of understandable, I guess. But
sure,
yeah, I don't know. It's every time someone mentions the Sirens, they're like, "Did anybody go?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but there's like
yeah,
other things that are happening." So yeah, I guess we'll see. But it is you're not the first person to ask, and it's so
mhm,
valid because to do well, you have to have people to come see you play.
sure,
But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I'm
for
hoping
sure.
I think they'll be there next year for sure.
Yeah, I think, I've said this before that especially when all these new leagues start up, they're always gonna look at the New York media, at the New York
Yep.
market as, "We need to do something there," because I think
Mhm.
for a lot of people, they feel like if you're not in that area, you're not maximizing your growth.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think that the Sirens, I think they've definitely done some good things, but certainly they need to do more. Certainly winning helps. I
Yeah.
don't think there's any, even if you're, let's call it a small market team, if you're winning, people will be more interested, in it. And look, the Sirens obviously haven't had the best start in this new league.
Yeah.
You had a tough year last year. You're having another tough season, but they do have some pieces that you can build around in terms of ladies like Ella Shelton.
Mhm.
You have Carpenter as well. Arguably the best goaltender probably in the PWHL
Oh,
in Corinne
yes.
Schroeder. And again, Sarah Fillier, at least, we still she's still there. And I think that it's going to have to start there, but certainly the marketing aspect. And I know that I've seen promotion for different roles within the organization. They're certainly looking to increase their visibility and their marketing. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how they go about it during the off season and moving forward into next year.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, there's been a lot of good things. There's been a lot of not so great things, but we could always chalk it up to experience. And
Yeah.
as long as we still have the team, we still have the opportunity to build around it, which is important. So,
Yeah, and I always remind people it's new. It's a brand new
yeah,
league. Like, I don't know, I wasn't around when the NHL was created, but I can't imagine a lot of people were going to those games at first too, because it's
right.
new. It's a new
Yep.
league, so you got to give it a little bit of time and to give. They're gonna grow. It'll
Yeah.
establish itself. It's brand new, and I'm always like, just give it a
Fair enough.
chance. Just give it a chance. And that being said, though, go to a Sirens game because they're so much fun to
May
watch.
May 2nd, their final game of the regular season, final home game. If you literally have nothing else better to do, I would recommend going and just supporting the local team. That's always what I tell people.
Mhm.
Support the local team, give them some love and give them some appreciation, because they need it. And it's important for all the players to know that they have fans that care and want to support them. And I think they can build upon that moving forward. So, Brianna, before I let you go, I want to kind of take you more into like a little personal, route, because I always
Mhm.
like to kind of get, especially when I have new people that come on, I want my viewers and listeners to kind of get to know you a little bit better. Um, and obviously, I've watched a lot of your work. One big thing that constantly stands out to me is the Sports Girls Club, which I think is awesome. So,
Mhm.
can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I want people to kind of get an understanding of what it is and what the mission is with it.
Yeah, so I actually got involved in my senior year of college when I kind of realized I wanted to work in sports. So it was an accumulation of me just trying to get experience of things. Basically, Sports Girls Club is an organization that is all about elevating women who either work in sports, love sports as a sports fan, anything that has to do with sports and you're a woman, just kind of prioritizing your voice and making you feel like you have a place.
Hmm.
And that to me really registered as I had an internship in college. I still am in my current job, one of the only women that works in hockey in my current position. So it really resonated with me. And I was like, I want to get involved in that. So I started as a writing intern. I am now the head of journalism. So I oversee all of our writers, all of our editors, and pretty much I just let them write about any sports news or sports related topics that they would like, as long as it's like journalistically correct or in
Correct. Yep.
right the form. Yeah, just for them
Hmm.
to get the experience. A lot of them move on and go to do amazing things, which I love seeing them do that. But really, it's just a community for women in sports to kind of feel like they have a place. It's really great to meet new people who we know people. I've know people in Canada, across the U.S., all over the place. So it's really awesome to not only find that place of, "Hey, I'm also a woman in sports," but
Hmm.
I kind of have that community for it, but then also meeting people and seeing, like, my interns go on and do further their careers, so, yeah, it's really awesome. I've loved it. I'm going on, I think, almost 3 years there now, but it's
Congratulations.
also thank you. It's also one of those things where I also get the pleasure, the honor of having a part of all those girls' stories as they continue on in their sports career, and that makes me feel really good. So yeah, it's a accumulation of things, but mostly just a really, really big community for women who like sports, work in sports, want to work in sports, any of that, all in one place.
I absolutely love that because I consider myself a big supporter of women in sports. The Devils just recently had their women's empowerment night, which was
They
literally a
did.
week ago, and they've done a really great job throughout this month of shouting out a lot of the women. I think the Devils might have the most females that
Yeah.
work for an NHL team of anybody, um, which is pretty remarkable. And I think it's incredible what Tom Fitzgerald has done of opening different roles. You look at what Kate Madigan has done as an
Yes, I
assistant general manager
got to
who,
speak to her and it was
you
like the
know,
most amazing. I was like, "Oh my god, for you like it's the coolest thing." So yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
and you have other women like Rachel Herzog.
Mhm.
You have the girl that obviously runs the Devil's Twitter account, who's phenomenal. I mean, she does a great job, and I think it was great to kind of get a little behind the scenes of just like how her regular day goes.
Mhm.
And I could say this with a lot of certainty that I think what's most important is that a lot of these young girls that are growing up who want to get into sports are now seeing more and more of these women in different positions, whether
Yep.
it's in sports or it's in as a teacher or politics or in law. I think it's great that now they have someone they can look up to. And I think
Mhm.
like that's the big thing that I always took away from the PWHL's message, that like, oh, guess what? Now you have this established, professional league that girls can dream about, not just like going to college and then that's the end of the
Yeah,
road.
like
It's
you
like
can
now
really play professional hockey.
You can play professional hockey, you can be in professional
Mhm.
hockey, like, I think that that's just great, and I would like to see the NHL be more involved in it. I think that they're getting there, but I don't think that they're anywhere close to where I think
Yeah.
they should and could be. But it's great. And I think also looking at things like the PWHL takeover games, whether it was in Buffalo or Seattle or Detroit, and just like
Mhm.
seeing the outpouring of that and seeing the outpouring of just women in sports, I think has been tremendous over the
Yeah.
last couple of years. And it's people like yourself that do amazing work in multitude of different ways in whatever sport it might be is great. And I think that that club is what you ladies do is phenomenal,
Thank
and
you.
definitely, you know, you I'm sure you guys will continue to keep that up because you guys are doing a fantastic job. There's no other way to
Thanks. Yeah.
simply put that.
I will pass it along. We love hearing. I think I kind of get stuck in my own box, especially at work
Mhm,
too, about like, oh my god, I'm the only one here, and like you kind of get stuck in being like you don't feel like there's other women in sports, but knowing,
mhm.
hearing it from somebody who's outside of it, it's a great reminder that it doesn't go unseen and other people appreciate it too. So that means a lot. So I will pass it on, but I also appreciate it. So thanks.
Awesome. And again, Brianna's not only doing that, she's also an NHL network researcher, which is
Mhm.
really, really cool. So she's very much involved in hockey and
A
especially
lot.
in the local area. And Brianna, it was such a pleasure to have you on today for this podcast episode. But before I let you go, because I do this with all of my guests, I like to, as they say, roll out the red carpet and
Ooh.
allow you to let the folks, whether they're listening here, they're here on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever, where they can find you and the work that you do. So the floor is yours.
Well, my Instagram is just my name, so Breanna Ebisch. My journalistic writing and all of my stats that I do at work usually go on Twitter. So it's also my name, just at Brianna with an underscore Ebisch. And then my articles are always online at sportsgirlsclub.com, but that is also linked on Twitter. So if you're there, it's pretty much where it is. And that's about it. Yeah.
And we will leave a link to both of those in the description here on YouTube as well. So you guys can go and check out all the work that she does covering, the NHL, the Devils, the New York Sirens, and so
Hmm.
much more. But again, Brianna, thank you so much for today. It was a pleasure. And we will definitely have you back on the podcast in the future. So, but thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. I love talking about hockey, so I will always be happy to come back on if you ever want me.
Sounds good. Thank you again. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thanks so much.